There are so many startup myths.
That you know your market, especially if it's that big as yours, 1.3 trillion.
I'm still getting goosebumps when I talk about this.
That's massive.
Because that's what people fight for.
Okay, then that's an interesting field. Just to take a look at it.
Can't you just build something?
Is that why you tattooed a unicorn?
Hey, who told you that? I helped LinkedIn build presence for the DACH region.
We probably will be talking about millions.
But experiences, that's what people invest in.
I will go now to this because I think it's super interesting and super relevant.
Because it will stay with you until the rest of your life.
What's the sentiment?
Let's talk about fancy technology and cool shit. So, I was in the bus and because of a traffic issue and snow and everything, the bus from one stop to the next took almost an hour. So I jumped off, ran through like the whole quarter there in the snow to get to the U-Bahn to kind of be 15 minutes late at the notary. Quite a start to the day.
But did you make it?
We made it, yes. Now it's not eLife anymore. Now it's TapGig. It's all TapGig.
It's all TapGig. That's
makes
good.
sense, yeah.
So that means you close something, because when you're into the notary, normally means that you close something or you did something.
This was literally just the renaming of the company, because we're building the team more and more, and we have a COO on board now. She wants to optimize also for SEO and push the brands, and she made the recommendation to not have a company brand plus product brands, but to all put it into one brand, which works. I mean, we have the entertainment product line and we have the customers in broadcasting, but we could just make it TapGig Entertainment, TapGig Broadcast. It's just no problem. So.
Yeah. Sometimes I have this doubt when I remember this company we invested that was called Edoven, and the algorithm was called Willem. It's called Willem. Actually, they're very successful. They're like, it would be nicer to call everything Edoven, no? Maybe other device, or it's easier to look for.
You know, if you are bootstrapping like we are, and we're in this super lucky situation that we can keep this up, we are actually, in a sense, self-funding because we have almost no burn. And we're also creating revenues with our broadcasting customers. Then it's decisions you take. Do you want to invest in building more than one brand, or is it easier? And do you have also synergies if you just build up one brand? And the great thing is, TapGig is already on Google on the first page without us having to do anything.
Yeah, that's good.
So to bring a new brand, which also is used in some other context, to that level would be, as we all know, a serious investment. And now we're all on TapGig, which is already well positioned.
I must say that for this interview before, I checked eLife on Google and I didn't find it.
No, because we didn't do anything.
And I was wrong. And then I went to your LinkedIn. Now it's all TapGig.
Yes.
And I saw all the information there.
Yes.
Okay. So we've been talking a little bit about TapGig and eLife. So maybe it's worth to give some context to the people who's listening.
Sure.
What is TapGig?
Absolutely. So TapGig is a platform for creating professional audio-video productions in the cloud, which means everywhere where you want to generate professionally produced content, like live encounters, but also for broadcasting, and a Zoom conference is not enough. You have a wide field where people have no idea how to find the right partners, how much budget they need, and they tend to spend a lot of money for everything that's more complex than video conferencing. So TapGig is basically everywhere where you want to produce professional audio-video content, meaning several cameras with a video editing function, multi-track audio productions. That could be, a music formation, a band. It could be a panel where you need a sound that makes the result feel like it's actually live and in front of you. All that doesn't come with YouTube or Twitch because they just take a signal and distribute it to an audience. And what we do is we enable for remote production. That means you don't have to bring all the heavy equipment to the place of the production. You don't need to bring all the expensive teams which are highly skilled to the location anymore. You can use commodity hardware like smartphones for cameras, plug it all into our access point device, which is a small box, connects to our cloud service and enables a professional audio video production, which then can be used for events, where you can all of a sudden have great live artists, presentations live on stage without people having to be there. And it also can be used for broadcasting it through streaming channels or even on TV. This is what we do with Magenta Sport and Dine, where we basically enable them to create flanking content in real time for a fraction of the cost. So the example here is we were used for the European Championship at handball this year. And when we did the tech check, our team showed up with our tech guy and two people who held smartphones. And after 15 minutes, the technical solution, which is the size of a small piece of luggage, was set up and was giving signals. So after 20 minutes, our tech check was done with 3 people. And right next to us, the ZDF, the German major broadcast station, they weren't even ready and opened all of their 10 massive boxes with 19 people for the exact same result.
Wow. Okay. Is that live? Can we check that, or is it somewhere that it could be checked? Because I wanted to put it in the description.
That happened at the Handball European Championship at the tech check day before the first game.
Okay.
And people have been talking about this. So now new channels have been made aware of this. And we're actually now part of the Basketball EuroLeague. We will be part of UEFA European Football Championship. So that is, interestingly, the field, the market where we are growing the fastest. Right?
So the idea in there, like the football or the basketball, in this sport event, the idea, because first, as I understood it, it was like you have this band that is playing somewhere in California and you want to display it in Munich. And maybe they're having a concert there and you have the concert live experience in Munich. So you use TapGig for that.
Exactly.
But now, if you add the sports, how does it fit there? Is like, do you want to have some band playing in their studio somewhere and have it in the middle of the arena? Like, how does that work?
It's a different, you could say it's a 2 parallel use cases that you can use our technology for. It's all about remote production of audio video content for a fraction of the cost that you have with the typical setups that people use with on-site hardware, software, and personnel. So it doesn't matter if you are producing a live concert of a artist like what we did for our friends in Ukraine, where Joey Cape is playing in his studio live, where we produce the audio and the video, and we basically project him live into Lviv, and people interact with him, have a true live concert experience. It's the same thing if we use TapGig to produce that production, or if we go to a sports event where you use the same setup to create content for, like, for example, interviews with people coming right off the field, or you have the flexibility to take the solution and go where the fans are. All of the equipment you need to produce is basically a small box like this. So we've done events with massive projections, like here in München at the Siegestor, and the entire equipment came off a cargo bike and a mobile wireless internet connection.
That's great.
Yep, that's really great.
Yeah. So
we have been in Düsseldorf last week, where we had a partnership with the Schauspielhaus in Düsseldorf, and that was a super emotional moment. We basically re-erected the destroyed theater of Mariupol, which was a famous theater for decades. It got bombed, even though there were 1,000 people inside seeking for shelter, and they wrote in big letters "children" right in front of it. And our video artist basically created video content of this theater in its original form, and we projected it on the Schauspielhaus facade, so it actually looked like the theater was in Düsseldorf. And then we also showed the stage of the theater, and we had artists from Ukraine play live on that stage of the virtual theater of Mariupol.
I remember that.
that was a very emotional moment for all the theater people. There was a theater festival with a topic of Ukraine, and this was the highlight at the opening day.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. When I heard about this case, I thought, wow, okay, in here, I totally see the point because you bring that story there. The thing is, when you take the art kind of away, when this is in a sports event, aren't you missing your like USP kind of, or you don't care because it's actually what you said, just something really small that we can transport everywhere and we transmit anything, whatever.
It is
we
the first
whatever.
scalable solution for remote production of professional audio-video content. Because until today, there were solutions for even bidirectional streaming, but it was incredibly expensive. For events, 6-digit amounts to create these types of experiences. And we can do this for literally, a few thousand euros. And the actual service is a few hundred euros per hour. And that is a truly disruptive situation, which enables almost every event organizer to integrate meaningful live encounters, presentations into their event, because they're not spending all their money for the technology and teams on site. It's also a lot of CO2 if you move all that stuff for a production that's only there for 2 hours or 3 hours. And they can use this budget now for great content. They can invest this budget into amazing people who then appear on their event because, they will be there because they don't have to be there physically.
Yeah.
So we are creating a unprecedented access to live talent because you can now book people and have them appear live and interact with them who were so far way too expensive or wouldn't come anyway to your corporate event or private event, or were not there because they're on tour, but now they might have an off day and they can do a tap gig from backstage. We already had bands play backstage, a gig, 45 minutes.
So you're not, because some people in the audience could be thinking, oh, this is another solution that is taking all the life experiences away from us.
No.
And we don't want, and I know you're a musician and you're super into.
All the three founders are musicians. Rüdiger is part of one of Germany's most successful bands. And absolutely clearly, we're not disrupting physical live events. We have created a new format of live encounters, which goes beyond the physical life. Because what we discovered with our events and partnership with our friends from Ukraine is that if you bring people on a physical stage, you reduce them to their individual who's in front of you. If you can meet somebody from where they are and where they live and their entire environment, you are putting something on stage that you can't put on a physical stage. The Ukrainian violinist who was playing live on the Siegestor, the war memorial here in Munich, she was playing from the Ukraine, from the war zone. And people on the street, I'm still getting goosebumps when I talk about this, they felt it. If she would have been standing in front of this, nobody would have figured, okay, she's there, she's safe, she's from Ukraine, okay. But there, okay, she's playing in Ukraine, and she's talking about how she's doing as an artist, as a woman in Ukraine in war times. And this is an almost immersive experience because you're looking into the world of the other side. And all of that is enabled. All of that enables encounters which would not happen physically. We projected Joey Cape into a military distribution camp when the German bands brought ambulance vehicles financed by German bands like Tote Hosen, Jan Delay, all of these bands. And my co-founder led up this convoy and gave it to the military, to the combat medics who drive it on the front lines. And when they got there, we had a surprise gig for them. And Joey Cape was playing for them, projected against the wall of a military distribution camp with mobile equipment. It was a super emotional moment. Joey Cape was And this is a punk star from California. He was like, is it really okay I play there? These people are in war. A week later, he was playing for us at South by Southwest in Austin, and he was still talking about how special it was for him to meet these people in Ukraine. And he would have never been able to play there live physically, but he played for them live. And it was so meaningful to these people. They made statements. There was a officer who hugged Rüdiger, and he told him, at the end of the day, when we stop killing, we take out our guitars to remember why we do it. And it was so meaningful to these people that there was a concert, that there was culture, because that's what people fight for. And eventually, and this is a encounter which would just physically not happen. So we're enabling beyond the physically live, live appearances, live encounters, and that's what's differentiating it from the physical life, which we all love very much. We don't want to disrupt real stages. We're just enabling event organizers to bring something up next to it where physical life doesn't work. Budget's too small, no access, locations where you can't go, all of that. And it's not only, that's important to say, it's not only music. Everything you want to do live, where a Teams conference is not enough because you can't do a professional audio video production with it, or a Zoom conference, needs a new form of producing content. And the default way of putting equipment somewhere, there's no way to optimize it. It's just, it hit the wall, right? It's not developing. It's just becoming more expensive. And the disruption is that we move all the heavy lifting technically into the cloud, and you can use it from anywhere in the world. And that's dramatically lowering the cost for production of immersive audio-video content.
When do you start with this, and what was the trigger that led you to it?
We started during lockdowns here. So my Apple Garage or whatever garage moment was when a friend of mine who works for Twitch called me and said, hey, can't you just build something, please, that artists can play in my living room? I'm dying over here. Because this is a person who loves culture and sees 2 bands a week in Hamburg. And I said, yeah, but you guys have a platform that does this? No, it's not our business. So I decided, let's do it. And also, having been in deep tech, it's also something I'm really passionate about, and it's great to share. There are so many startup myths. I could probably do an entire podcast version about startup myths, where people who are not really part of the ecosystem but want to position themselves, they're picking up stuff they read on LinkedIn or in any type of books.
Yeah.
And then young founders hear this and think it's a given. And that's very sad because it's confining their thinking. It's confining beliefs, as you call it, in that psychological perspective. And so I always try to kind of do the myth busting stuff, like VC is the only source of money for a startup, or your startup has to have unicorn potential. Please, it's just BS, right? And the same thing is what you sometimes learn in deep tech. If a big player can copy that, you shouldn't even start thinking about it. So if you're an entrepreneur, you know that this is just a very one-dimensional perspective on innovation. Sometimes the big players are just not the trusted players. I mean, look at specifically the music industry. No musician trusts Spotify. They destroyed large parts of where they were making money from. So there's no more money from recorded music for most of the musicians. And now somebody comes along and wants to disrupt the live business too for them. Probably shouldn't be Spotify or any of the big labels, who are actually the reason why Spotify is not really paying out a lot of money to artists. Maybe it's better if this is a smaller player, which is more authentic, which is a bit more credible, which is artists for artists, something like that. So credibility is super important. So if you have a bit of an edge, it could still be worth to start the journey, even if a Google or Amazon could theoretically copy this product in whatever, half a year or a year.
Yeah.
And it might still be worth pushing it. And that's what enabled me to just do the first steps. And the more we are on this journey, the more we find out it's absolutely true. None of these big players could actually do this. We're a great exit target for Disney Plus or whoever, but they wouldn't be in the position to really build something from the scratch. And I mean, luckily we also have IP for the solution, which is also always helpful. But I want to say this is something that's a startup myth where you should not just say, okay, it doesn't make sense. You should think twice more and really look into the industry, into the stakeholders, the ecosystem, whatever happened before, and take your decision on a bit more data than just thinking, okay, if Google can do it, I shouldn't even start doing it, because it might not be true.
Is that why you tattooed a unicorn?
Hey, who told you that? The idea is at some conference I might be asked this whole unicorn thing, and I have a very visual answer for that.
What some audience probably no one knows is that you were the first interviewee to What's in Store show, but that episode never went live.
Okay.
And we kind of had this thing that I owe you to have at least this interview, and it was my pleasure anyway to do it. I could do 2 or 3 or 4 anyway, because I know I can keep popping topics like, I don't even mention like Elon Musk. I know that triggers you a lot. And
we use Starlink. It's great when we did this event here in the middle of thousands of people on a cultural event with the Ukrainian violinist on the Sega store, and you can't use wireless data. If the cell is full, you won't have a stable connection. Even if we don't really need a lot of bandwidth, it's not stable. So Starlink works.
Yeah.
I have to say it works.
And full stop there, and that's okay.
Also in Africa, we now have artists in Ghana, and it's interesting to see that. But one of the main internet supply cables through the Red Sea got damaged. And Central Africa had massive issues with internet supply. And now, luckily, the area there is getting Starlink support, which is great. Also, we know how that helped Ukraine in wartime. And so there's not everything is black or white.
No, and I didn't want to either to derail so much from the main topic that we were talking about, that was TapGig and the story and how you build it. And I think that it makes sense that you give a little context of your previous life before TapGig. So can you tell a little bit of how you went there, and not just the lockdown and having this
Sure. Well, after university, I co-founded my first startup in 99, 2000 during the first wave of new economy in Germany. Interestingly, in the same industry like we are landed now today. After that bubble burst, I went and worked for corporates. I learned the world of corporates. I built digital business units in a pioneer time of e-commerce and digital. And that also brought me here to Munich. I helped LinkedIn build presence for the DACH region as the commercial director. And after that, I was infused with so much entrepreneurial culture and energy that I decided I have to go back into the startup ecosystem. And through a using a digital agency as a platform, the 2 co-founders that I co-founded Artisans with basically found me on a startup event where I was in the jury, actually the Startup Fight Club here in Munich, which is a really cool thing where people pitch in a boxing court. And and then we founded a super interesting deep tech, which was one of the really early first deep techs where German VCs invested. Actually, a fairly big ticket. It was $4.5 million into our US holding in Palo Alto for a seed round with a professor of the TUM University. And this company got sold to a Japanese software company a few years later, and I'm since then building new projects. And that kind of came through the same time when the pandemic hit, and that's where it all started with TapGig.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and it's been an incredible journey, and I'm extremely thankful that we're privileged to be able to bootstrap this company, because it's been such a incredible journey of finding out who we actually are and what we actually do for who. I think most startups don't really get the time to do this, and they have to fundraise in order to survive. I guess people are nowadays, the product market fit is seen as a journey, which is absolutely realistic and makes sense. And I think there's a second journey, which I now call the narrative market fit. Because sometimes you hold the product in your hand, but you are so stuffed with different narratives you've used over the period of building your product and your idea of how you're going to bring it to market and who is going to be your target group, how is your business model going to structure and evolve over time.
Are you referring to these myths again, or just...
Sorry?
Are you referring to the myths that people have in their mind?
No, this is actually something that I believe is a privilege if you have the time and the opportunity as a startup to really go through this in a structured way, to understand not only what is the product I'm building, but also how do I position it, what's the right narrative, specifically when you're in a more complex environment like marketplaces. Eventually, TapGig right now is you could say, SaaS service where B2B event organizers can create audio-video productions in the cloud. But it's going to be a marketplace where you can book live presentations, talents, gigs, whatsoever, for your company event, for your private event, for your cultural event. And that's a very complex, not only business model, but it's also a very complex roadmap, business planning piece. And you evolve over time, and your narratives develop, and sometimes they change. I mean, a pivot doesn't have to mean that you're building a completely new product. Most pivots mean you understand of what you have has to be brought to market in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's what we did quite a few times. And that's why I have just suggested that there's not only a product market fit, there's also you could say, narrative market fit. Because it's so important that you learn what you actually do and how you can bring it across. You start with founder sales. So you're the one selling it to your first customers.
Yeah. Okay, and you said you did everything bootstrap so far in the last 4 years. So that means that I guess at the beginning you did it with some savings that the founders have. And then you start getting the first customers. And you've never looked for VC money at all.
Well, we have bootstrapped through product development, through our kind of market launch. Right now, and this is possible because, like I said, I was participating in the exit of Artisense before, and my co-founder is a successful musician in Germany. So we have invested a substantial amount, six-digit, into the first phase of the company. But we've also been able to build an amazing team. We have a former MD of Universal on board. We have a successful serial entrepreneur with several exits who's himself invested into VC funds as a CTO on board. We have a ex-KPMG M&A guy as a CFO. This team is amazing, and we have literally zero burn for personnel at this point. So we have no pressure to fundraise. At the same time, our traction is beautifully developing with all of these kind of events that we're doing. We're starting off with cultural because we're really creating visibility, great content. We're selling it then into our core first market, which is corporate, obviously. And we're building a team. And this is only possible because we were able to build this up to a level where people really see the substance, really they love this vision, right? And this is a great situation. And back to your question, clearly we will have to bring external capital on board because we have a substantial development roadmap it's a 7-digit budget for a seed phase of typically 18 to 24 months, where we kind of replace, you could say, market products from our solution with proprietary software that we build both on embedded side as well as on server side, which also enables us to offer more services, cloud-based services to our customers. And also we want to build our teams because we have so much, you could say, upper funnel in our traction that we have to pick the projects we do.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could now bring on, even if it's an interim financing model, we could literally scale the traction we have by adding more people who execute on delivery and sales, which is a great situation to be in, obviously.
There are a couple of things you said I wanted to ask you about. And first, there's one question that I get asked sometimes from seed startups, and is that when you put your money into the startup to build it, how do you deal at the beginning with your salaries? Because some people are like, should I put a salary? Because I'm paying myself. So up until what point should I earn? But I think I should earn. But then, like, how did you guys did it in your case?
My strong belief is that in pre-seed and seed, any money you take out of the company can only be taken out to basically enable you to do your job. So it's only paying for the freedom to execute. Any dollar you take out on your savings account, doesn't make any sense. No investor would like to see you're taking out a salary where you put money on your savings account, where you just sold him that you will have to build something amazing, which is in seed in the very beginning. So whatever compensation you take out in a seed round after you brought in investors should merely cover your costs so you can do your job at maximum impact. Clearly, you have to have a model where you can survive. If you're running into personal or private issues, you will not be able to do your job anymore because your personal life will implode. So it has to put you into a safe position, but no dollar should be taken out for any type of luxury, buying a new car or putting it on your savings account. That is absolutely not acceptable.
So you would be like, you would agree to have a minimum kind of salary that allows you to leave if that's the case? I'm thinking of younger, maybe entrepreneurs that they don't have the previous exit or they don't have the experience, and they were like,
as an entrepreneur, the first thing I try to do is I try to create freedom to execute and make most out of the assets I have, the resources I have, right? So if I can bring somebody on who can create X amount of value into the company, I can take decisions how much of my resource do I put against it to enable this value to be created. Those are decisions that you can take and you can also execute without having to pay salaries. We're bringing on people now where we are paying them through the revenues they create.
Okay.
And also we're paying them through the projects they create, where we can basically have our customers pay for the salaries. So in a stage where you do proof of concept projects, for example, this is a way to do this and to keep the burn of the company at an absolute minimum, because you don't want to be, with increasing speed, drive towards the wall. It's just the worst place to be in, also for fundraising, obviously.
Yeah.
Because no investor wants to hear, I really need your money.
Yeah. And this brings me to another similar topic, that is when you bring these super talented people that probably is super expensive in the regular market, let's call it. And I guess they go with you not because they will get money from the customers that they sell, but because they trust the project and they trust you and the founding team. But then there is this little issue with the equity of the company, because some of them would be like, I trust in this company, therefore I'm earning way less than what I should. I want equity. Yeah. And they're like, how do you distribute? How do you handle this problem kind of within the company?
Well, this is truly a challenge. So all of our executive team is incentivized through participation. As of now, we are a typical German GmbH, which basically means you have to work with virtual shares, which is not actually options. It's, you could say, an incentive plan. Both with ESOP and with VSOP, there's a confined range you can use it for. So no investor would love to see a VSOP plan that is 30% of your equity. There are some, you could say, as you know, there's these cheat sheets where people try to find kind of standards. And, when we started with Artisans in Germany, people had probably an average of below 10% for ESOP or VSOP plans. Mm-hmm. And then this became, the impact from the US came over and people understood, well, specifically in early stage, you bring on your first key employees, key whatsoever, partners or members of the leadership team, you will need more than 4 or 5%. And people have started to understand that this is a value. In Germany, when we started with Artisans, people really didn't think this is a tangible value.
Wow.
It's a cultural piece that it has been developing. It's still different here than it is in the US. In the US, people will work for literally no money just to get this percent. And they jump jobs just to collect, which is also not really a healthy scene. But anyway, clearly there's a risk that you create a broken cap table. So you can't have 20 people with 5%. You can, but then it's going to be tough to find VC money.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a mix, right? You will have to individually take decisions on how can I find the individual business model which is best suited. And clearly, as a founder, your most precious thing is equity. So you will always try to find ways to compensate also using a cash component. And if that's possible to do it on a performance base like what we're doing, this is the way to go in an early stage to kind of protect your equity base in the founder team, also to be able to potentially do more than one round and still be in control of the company.
Mm-hmm. And this leads me to the question that, is there, it's going to be so quiche, but is there some real smart money in the sense that when you need a round and you said, we're going to need probably 7-digit to execute what we want. So at some point, I don't know your numbers now in terms of revenue but I guess that it wouldn't be like insane right now. Like we probably wouldn't be talking about millions. That's what I mean by insane. So therefore, if you need to raise a round without getting too much diluted, and by too much I mean 15, 20% would be already, regular chunk, but could be feasible. How would you manage? Because the only way would be to find people who would share your vision, right? That's what is called VC, smart money. Mm-hmm. They would share your vision, and therefore they know what they're doing. They know what they're invested in. Do you think that this is for real in your case, or you think it's another myth?
Well, first of all, clearly the let's say insecurity on the capital market leads to a situation where, first of all, there is sweet spots where it's easier to still get an investment because people understand the space. Mm-hmm. In all other places, you have to show a functioning business model and go-to-market model. So you can show a working model in market where investors understand if you put money here, or you put this much more money here, this much more outcome is going to come out of your system. And you're able to actually execute on your roadmap and vision. Sure, if you are in an early stage, you will have to find a solution to balance the valuation issue and your kind of speed time to market, right? So one solution can be that and this is something I think many teams are trying for now, that you kind of push back on your seed round, VC round for a while. Also kind of envisioning that the market is going to relax a bit in Q4, maybe this year or something like this, and try to find a plan where you can actually make significant progress in specific traction-related milestones with a much smaller amount of money. So you could call it a bridge round or a small angel round, which is purely focused. So you push back some of the development targets. You purely focus on building traction and on building this functioning model, showing it works, right? This is something that is, I think, what many people are doing, because it's sometimes easier to find somebody who is more coming from, the ecosystem, more angels that buy into your vision, who want to be part of the journey a bit, to bring in an amount where you can, this is what we're doing, but currently still self-funding, where you increase your bandwidth for execution, so you can drive traction, which brings you closer to be relevant for example, VC investors, and it's basically speed money.
Yeah.
So that's one way of dealing with the situation, because just going out and, as we all know, fundraising is a full-time job. You put your business at risk. You're reducing your ability to drive traction. And that's, in many cases, with a climate in the capital market as it is today, that can be a very risky decision to take. So we're really lucky that we don't have to fundraise. We will literally... And typically, you could say the later the better, because it gives you time to build your traction, to grow your valuation, and to have to be able to reach better terms. But it's a luxury not everybody has.
Yeah, that's right. And in that case, for these people who may be listening into this now, and they may then have that luxury, would you recommend business angels, or would you recommend some incubators or accelerators instead of going to BC straight, which probably they cannot find? But I found that in Munich, actually, and in Germany in general, they're quite pre-seed and seed investors.
Yeah.
There's a kind of a gap, because you have many pre-seed and seed investors, you have many Series A investors, and then you have some space in between. There's like no man's land, more or less. I mean, there are people who invest, of course, but it's not as crowded at these two areas, right? So it's like you can get there swimming, and then you look at the other side of the land and say, wow, that's far. But so for these people who's here in the beginning, would you recommend BC from these pre-seed seed funds? Would you say it's better to go for business angel because they would get more into it, they will help you more? Or how would you tell them, or just go for grants? Did you go for public money? In Germany also, it depends on your land. You can have many.
Yeah, I'm sorry, this is going to be a very boring answer, because I think I would put myself in a difficult position if I've been talking about myths in the startup ecosystem. And if I now gave an answer, that would be a general answer for any startup. So I guess there is no general answer to this question. It's very much depending on the individual case. If you are a company like TapGig, where it's not the typical B2B service, like the next way to optimize your sales pipeline with AI, which is something I guess everybody understands, and it's clear value. It's It's a clearly defined SaaS model, and the execution is fairly laid out in front of you. So if you're in a field that is not that much the sweet spot where everybody's looking at from the VC community, then it can be helpful to bring on angels, because clearly not only they can help you operatively and with money, also, you will start to build credibility. You will start to build a network to investors through these angels. Angels are typically also well networked with other angels or VC. It's not a siloed community. So I guess it helps for many startups who have not been fundraising before. This is a completely new world, and bringing somebody on who has experience, who can help you, who can guide you through this process, and brings in a network, it's incredibly valuable for many early stage startups who don't have serial entrepreneurs in their team. Like, we are all serial entrepreneurs. It's a completely different situation. Of course.
Yeah. Esther, now that you say, I'm thinking about how wrong many of the questions that I did in the previous interviews are. Because it is true that even when I think myself about it, it's like, it's so broad that it may lose sense even. Because it's true, because of course I'm always thinking B2B SaaS, first company, second company, but
a good friend of mine, he presented an AI use case 2 years ago to the VC community. Mm-hmm. Nobody was interested. It's exactly the case that Apple has just presented a few months ago. And he has then gone for European EIC money. He got the full 2.5 million. Nice. He didn't invest any equity. So that's what I'm saying. And it's actually a true AI company. It's not just a PowerPoint AI or nice API to ChatGPT AI company. And they're building integrated end-to-end service models for industrial customers. So whoever's interested, I can make a lead. So this is another example where somebody then took a decision and really focused in, and it's a long and cumbersome and painful process to go through it. With Artisans, we've also went for these types of grants, and you need a lot. It's an own ecosystem you have to understand. But it's an option. He went there, he got the full funding, and he still has 100% of his equity.
Nice. Yeah, I was thinking that maybe in the cases of some deep technology that it actually requires even a part of academical validation, you could go through these kind of mechanisms. It really depends. I was thinking of another Munich-based company that is formed by 5 PhDs in the same space, doing the fastest database in the world. They already got funded by the government. And it's like, of course, like,
right now in the VC world, it would be difficult, right? Because no working go-to-market model with a proof of traction, solid traction from your ICP customers and so on. Artisans, we were a professor, world-leading code, and 2 co-founders. Different time, and it played out in some way. So I guess this is you have to look at it very individually. If this is 5 PhD people coming from research, maybe they, first of all, that is an option. Maybe they find an angel investor who is more coming from the commercial world. I mean, I've seen quite a few investments in very deep tech companies where investors were mainly investing into the CEO, who was the person
that's the case,
who had to make a business out of great IP or super talented research teams. So it's super individual. I've also seen people or incredible researchers where the professor basically was the main attractor to talent. I mean, look at Mobileye in our space back then, incredibly huge deal. But then again, there were other deals where it was mainly the commercial CEO who attracted the capital and created the trust that you can actually build a business out of the IP.
This leads to another common place, that is at the early stage, you invest in the team. And what's the team? What do they have to have? What's the vision? What's the market? Like, it depends, but normally, yes, you have to invest in the team. Why not?
I agree. It's freedom to execute in all stages in some sort, right? So the team, are they actually in a place? Do they have all the resources they need to realize their vision, or at least the next phase of the company development? So you could say it's team. Well, I mean, I'm always a big fan also to look at, I think Andreessen Horowitz 5 years ago collected all this data and found out the main correlation of data is actually timing. So you have to find a company where a specific development in the market, and this is literally what we have with TapGig right now. So the whole world of live productions, and this is a $1.3 trillion business, the market of live events. This is everything. This is music, this is broadcasting, this is fairs, sales events, public and corporate events, private events, weddings, 1.3 trillion. And this market is hitting his head on the ceiling because all equipment and all people have been becoming so much more expensive that many business models don't work anymore, and you can't scale. The only people who are constantly on tour are Taylor Swift and Bruce Springsteen. Everybody else has issues. Many bands can't tour anymore because it just doesn't work. Companies are doing a fraction of the events they did for live communication, bringing out new products, even though you have to do it because it's the only media or the only experience that your customers can still trust in. Now with AI, even videos, you can't trust videos. People don't trust websites or print flyers.
Yeah.
So live communication is the one thing. Real people meeting real people is the future of building brands, of creating trust in products. But it doesn't scale anymore. So this market found out, shit, the solution that we've used all the time doesn't scale anymore. We need a new solution. And at the same time, there has to be a company that has been working on something they were thinking about. And these two things meet.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sweet spot for investments. So
Yeah.
that's timing, and that's what the Andreessen Horowitz, I think, data showed. So the number one correlation of startup situation or context and success is timing.
Yeah, I was thinking that this actually correlates a lot or echoes a lot with what I've heard. Who was this guy? He was a lovely, brilliant guy. George from Sequoia.
Mhm.
It was a guy I was in a talk that he was giving to some people. And when we were talking about this, is it the market? How important is the market when you're financing a company? And he was like, well, if they show you the classical slide with the TAM, the SAM, and the things, like that's okay. It's good that you know your market, especially if it's that big as yours, 1.3 trillion. That's massive. And I will go now to this because I think it's super interesting and super relevant. But what he said was, yes, that's good, but is the dynamics of the market, the structure of the market. Because if you were investing in something related to cloud 10 years ago, probably the TAM was really low, and now you grew with the market, which is what you want. You want to be what you just described, the peep, that it is, that makes sense. And going to the 1.3 trillion, I just found out that it seems that, everyone, even these podcasts normally 5 years ago, probably it would have been way much rare or weird to happen. And now it's like, no. I mean, of course, we do this, we do interviews. Everyone does content. And I don't even know how many hours of content do I consume per day. And it's so relevant. And these people who say, I'm hooked to social networks and I hate how much time I spend. I don't hate any of the time I spend listening to things because there's so much free content and so much knowledge out there that is insane.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a way to enhance the way to produce content, and that's...
Well, you could say we're a solution where you can create professionally produced audio-video productions for any live, I think I said it earlier, any use case where a video conferencing software like Teams or Zoom is not enough anymore. And there is a wide field of these types of content or live situations where this is becoming relevant, especially since what we said earlier, since live communication is one of the massive macro trends, right? And you could say under the why now, you could also say that now the hardware is becoming so affordable. Projectors for large-scale production, even LED walls. All the live locations now have LED walls. Now you can project during the day. You don't have to wait until it's dark. Smartphones you use for cameras. In a room, you have so many cameras that could create content that you can actually put on TV.
Yes.
And it's enough. And there's a mistake in the mindset of people that believed that the whole industry is all about more and more quality, more and more quality. If I think back of when I listened to music when I was, 12 years old and I got my first tape deck, I thought, the way I listen to music is going to be better and better quality, better and better frequency ranges, better and better speakers. And now what am I listening music from? MP3 crap from this device. Because it's not the quality of technology is never important. It's the use case. I can take all my music with me to wherever I go. That's what is much more important.
Convenience.
It's the value for people, how it changes and improves their life. It's never technology.
That's a broad statement, but okay.
I truly believe in this. I mean, look at Apple. It's a user experience company. It's not a tech company. And if I look at how we project, we are right now projecting 720p. nobody in the world of broadcast would go, well, come on, this is like, the point is we only need 15 Mbits. We can make live encounters everywhere in the world. And we found out audio is important to feel your life connected to somebody on the other side. Video, people are tired of super high resolution 16:9 pictures because you see it all the day. If you have something projected against a wall, against a facade of an interesting building, this is something completely new. And you're like creating a new product perception in your brain. That's what we want to do. We don't want to be a streaming perception, a TV monitor, movie theater perception. We're something new. And actually video is even better if it's modulated. Think of Polaroid cameras. Think of Instagram and TikTok and Snap. They automatically put filters on your stuff because the photorealistic stuff is just boring. No, it's true. That's why Insta is successful, because they're changing your pictures without you doing anything about it.
Yes.
So video, this is all stuff that changes mindset, right? So video is not a part. It's audio, and it's the immersive quality of being connected to somebody that you would not be connected with. Typically, you have no chance to meet Joey Cape in the Ukraine right now. There's just no way. Yeah. But then there he is. And that's the special thing. It's about experiences. During the pandemic, everybody learned a new car, a new computer. That keeps you happy for 3 weeks. But it just doesn't have any meaning. But experiences, that's what people invest in.
Yeah.
Because it will stay with you until the rest of your life.
That's
the story. That's how you sell luxury products. You don't sell technology. You don't sell a product. You sell a story. You sell an experience. Think of high fashion. You don't sell something made of, fabric and how it doesn't matter. It's the story. Which designer came up with it? What was the first fashion show? This was presented by who, by which model? Who was there, and how did you then get that? That's the magic. Experiences is what people will increasingly actually spend money for, because it has a meaning. Anthropologically, people feel the value. Well, everything else, there's studies that prove that after 3 weeks or 3 months, I'm not exactly sure, there's no more emotional, you have basically grown accustomed to the new car, the new house.
Yeah.
I have a very silly joke which goes along to this. I'll tell you after the podcast. But it's also proven by data.
Okay, maybe I will record it anyway, and then I will release it.
No way you record that. No way.
You open a field that is super interesting to talk about, and is what stays. Because normally the question that I ask to many people in here is, what do you think of the future? How is it going to be, right? Because this show is also about to imagine how the future would look like. And there's also another counter question to this one that I want to implement since today. That is what things will remain. Because sometimes it's like, you can think about the future, what's about to come, but will you take the elevator in 50 years? Will the mechanism will be the same? Okay, then that's an interesting field. Just to take a look at it. In 50 years, you will still using the elevator. Okay, that's interesting. Will you still using your razor blade, or would you use something different? Probably that will remain, or no, I don't know. But from your perspective, and with your background and everything, you were talking about the experiences. So the experiences is actually something that defines us humans, right? So these probably will remain in the future. People is looking for experiences all the time, better quality, better gathering with people more related to them. What are other things that you think that will remain in the future?
In our field?
In your field, and if you want to extrapolate it to other fields, feel free.
I think what also science has found out about our species is that we learn the fastest when we listen to stories. Culture is built on telling stories. Culture is built on people that have a story, telling that to people who listen to it and who use it to identify with roles in that story or with values that are brought across by the story. or by visions, or by answers to stuff that has no answers. The whole anthropological reason for myths, as we were talking about it, is that it's a cultural asset created for people to tell themselves, I have an answer to stuff that my brain can't really have answers for, like death and eternity. Our brain cannot process it. So the myth gives us a recurring story that makes us believe we have an answer to it. And stories, I think, are something that are best brought across by individuals. I think we've seen a lot of stuff that went in the wrong direction with Web 3.0 and with the filter bubbles and fake news and everything, and it's eroding our pluralistic societies. It's our democracies are burning on the ends of the political spectrums. And that, to a large part, is because people are not listening to other people so much anymore and have real conversations and listen to stories by people who have stories to tell, cultural, political, academic people that have the substance. I mean, one of my favorite things is the Dunning-Kruger effect. That's why Donald Trump thinks he's an actually great president, because he's here and he only knows this bit of the spectrum, while you have to be an expert of 10 to actually evaluate if somebody is between 0 and 10. And in order to tell great stories, which keep societies together and explain why democracy is important, you also have to be somewhere here. So if, super self-important influencers kind of bring fake news into our kids' rooms and into people's, filter bubbles and resonance chambers, then we have an issue.
Yeah.
So I believe it's super important, and that will remain. The more real encounters with people who have a story to tell, have a piece of culture to present that you can build a relationship with, that's the only way to overcome prejudices, xenophobia, racism, all of that stuff. It's building on people meeting, people from different cultures meeting, building relationships, the only way to overcome it. It's not going to happen through social media or through writing a new book. Nothing gets better with writing a new book.
You don't think that social media bring anything positive to society at all?
I'm very critical, I must say. And I was running one of the leading social media agencies here together.
That's why.
For 2 years, when it was kind of still cool. I think Facebook, the best way, if somebody... There was actually a saying about Twitter many years ago when Carlos Slim was still running in Mexico. The best way would have been he would have bought it and just pulled the plug. I still believe that eventually we would be better off without it. There are great use cases where social media works beautifully. I'm a big fan of Strava for sports. It's very motivating. All the kind of self-positioning stuff that makes people sick emotionally or mentally that happen on Facebook and Instagram, where people show fake worlds, doesn't really happen so much there. So there is buckets where it does work, sure, but we're just starting to understand the impact it has on what I mentioned earlier, right? The kind of glue in our pluralistic societies, our democratic systems, and I believe we should be much more rigid in regulating it. It costs us potentially even our future if we just let it run, and the cost for that is much higher.
Yeah.
And we will all have to pay for it. It's just like if you think the freedom to completely destroy your health is a general freedom that you have, no, you don't. Because freedom in a society means your freedom goes only so far until you basically confine other people's freedom. So you don't have the freedom to kill your health, because we will have to pay your hundreds of thousands, potentially even more, of medical treatments for your stupidity from our tax money, and that just doesn't work. So it's totally okay to confine that freedom, and it's necessary. It's the same thing. You can't just, throw your garbage in the woods. That's also regulated. There is nothing like absolute freedom. It doesn't exist. Okay, you could if you get on a boat somewhere out on the ocean and you're all by yourself. You're free to do whatever you want, but not in a society where people live together that lives off the fact that you actually are given away some freedom to do silly stuff in order to create a functioning society.
Even in the middle of the sea, you would have internet connection thanks to Starlink, so you could use your social network there. Yeah, but I was thinking that I'm not a huge fan of Facebook or Instagram either, but I've found myself in YouTube quite frequently, or
yeah, you could say that's a video on demand platform that has some element of you could say interaction, but that's different. And I agree, these types of platforms that totally have a reasonable positioning and value that they bring to the table. So I wouldn't automatically putting in the same bucket.
Okay.
So I guess there is just we have to be open to see what kind of value new platforms bring to the table. But I guess there is stuff that we can see now that's actually happening, and we should be a bit more dealing with it.
Yeah. I've seen also initiatives like there's a company that actually we kind of like from Wayra to potentially invest in them. It's an AI radar for disinformation. AI radar could be too broad, but still what they found out is like what was the sentiment. They were originally from Ukraine, and they were actually interested in the sentiment of the war between the two countries in different areas. Like how is it in the front line? How is it in the back line in Ukraine? How is it in the back line in Russia? So you see also they kind of track the kind of information that was more open and the pop-up there and how that influenced the sentiment. But then that's good because they stay there. They say, we're going to do the tech to see and analyze what's the sentiment. But if you try to regulate that, I think that's just impossible. Like,
but this is not what I'm suggesting. So this type of platform to me is not a social media platform. This is a sentiment analytics and whatever service that you could be using to, take insights from available communication and potentially even social media platforms. So I wouldn't see the necessity to regulate that, but the necessity to regulate the freedom to put out fake content that has super negative effects on peace and in our societies and in our political systems that will destabilize entire nations as we can see it.
Yeah.
It's happening. Democracy is on the what you call it retreat. It's not retreat. It's going back, right? There's less and less countries that actually have a functioning democracy. And I'm not saying it's all because of Facebook, but this is something that I strongly believe that needs to be addressed. Why do you need or should you have the freedom to have a fake name and to post fake information on a platform and to basically create an echo chamber for people who want to believe in any type of what do you call this? I mean, obviously fake news, but even theories on
I
it
guess
goes all the way into health. There's less and less people who what is the word for impfen in English? So who who give the shots to their kids, right? So there is actual diseases coming back up because people listen to defined experts on the web who tell them that normal medicine system is not good because it's all, the pharma industry selling products and nature is much better. And then these people do it and they die. And sorry, that as an academic person, I have absolutely no understanding for that. And why is there a freedom to support that? It just doesn't make sense in a society.
I can imagine that the difference is that you can easily spot a fake name because, your name is Till, so you're not named Eduardo. Therefore, I can check your ID. Oh, yeah, it's not Eduardo. But then, when you're talking about when you don't talk about facts, so if you talk about the facts, and even some facts are being put on, but if you're given an opinion, then that's the problem, because it's like, okay, I have an opinion about this, or I think that this is happening. Then you could be completely wrong, because you could be just not well informed. You can be just an ignorant in that topic, and you're saying something that is not right to the crowd. But it's an opinion. So the moment you start to censor the opinions, I think that, this is a debate that could last forever. Right?
There's one thing that I believe is very important. It's called the social corrective, right? I mean, societies, people living together have impact on each other. And I always said, my example is if somebody gets up in a pub and makes a racist comment, back in the days, there would be somebody in the same pub, like a teacher or maybe the priest or so, and would say, hey, come on, Daniel, that's not cool. Think about it. Come on, your best friend has, his wife is from that country. Stop that crap. The guy would sit down, go home, and in every pub you would have one of these people. But they would keep there, and there's a social corrective. Now these people go home, they go on Facebook, and they believe they're part of a global movement which has to, completely change. And basically this goes, Civil War is the big movie coming up in the US right now. Nothing to add.
Yeah.
Let's talk about fancy technology and cool shit. Actually, I don't like, because I think it's important. There's so much self-priming you do when you pick up all the disturbing topics. And this is also something so important for founders. Your resilience is something I strongly believe in. It's also one of the myths that the kind of one-eyed under the blind in the startup ecosystem always talk about resilience being your ability to fight off pressure from external. I think that one of the key qualities of a founder is to fight your internal demons. Your own doubts. And you also have to manage your health, your energy, and your mindset, your mental health. Yes. And if you constantly go into these types of topics and you constantly come into a defensive or worried position, you're self-priming you in a way that will not help you to be a successful entrepreneur. So I guess it's super important you shouldn't stay out of it and say, I'm a non-political person now, which is also bullshit. But you should make sure you have enough people around you. And we all know you are the 5 people you surround yourself with. So bring up some happy people, some people that see a bright future, some people that infuse you with good energy, because that's what you need to actually be resilient.
Yeah, I remember I was reading the kind of a biography of this Templeton. There was a great investor that took a lot of advantage in the 30s and also beyond, because he was a counter thinker, let's say. And he always said that one of the key of his success is that he was able to focus his thoughts all the time. And he talked about what you said, like, why would I have unproductive thoughts? I need to have, he called it efficient thoughts, I think, which is, he is very peculiar, okay? So he does his thing. But it's true that if you have positive thoughts, of course your mind goes way better, because if otherwise you get into a spiral loop that is really wrong. But I think we could be talking for hours, and maybe I get you to volume 2 of this, and we we go for something completely different. But I just want to get to the end of the interview, but I wanted you to tell me, if there's anything, of course, that you have left, you please tell me. But otherwise, some other trend that you see, maybe that is not in your field of expertise, that you think, wow, this is insane, or wow, this is crap. Is this something you want to remark?
Well, I guess it's interesting. Maybe this is not such an obvious thing, but thinking about it also with an element of reflection. I guess the whole startup ecosystem has become so cool, right? It's so cool now to be a startup founder, and then there's these questions around, what does it take? Should I really take the step or not? And there's a tendency that since we're coming from a place where Germany wasn't the you could say most fertile ground for startups. This has changed quite a bit. We used to have a narrative where we would try to encourage people to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel this is something also, again, that is no general statement to make. It's not generally cool to be a startup founder. And I think it's very important for people who are either on the verge to take a decision like that, or even for people who have started and who find something is not feeling so good, to be super self-reflected and to understand if it's a good idea to actually do it or not. Just recently, I've seen founders who I felt have aged 10 years in a year. I've seen people who have completely lost their positive energy because they've been biting themselves and they have this idea, I never give up, and they don't have any triggers anymore which tell them it's over.
Yeah.
And that's just not worth it. Don't throw away your life because it's such a cool dream. So I feel we need more real mentoring for especially early stage startup teams. And this is nowadays, this is super young people. Also people, I founded eLife when I was 50. And even then, or also then, it's a question I should really ask myself, hey, is this the right place or the right time in your life? And we need the mentors and the people who have the empathy to have these types of conversations. This is something I love to do. I call it resonance, relevance mentoring that I do. I just listen to people and I try to understand my reactions that I have, not cognitively, but more emotionally, and tell people how I feel about what I sense from their entire presence and what they say and how they act. Because sometimes the feedback can just be, hey, don't get yourself into a difficult situation. And lots of people do it, and then there's this, it's cool to hustle. We hustle. It's cool to hustle, but it's not cool to risk your life or to destroy your health for your startup project, just because you, again, have read the wrong myths about startups.
I think that's the perfect end.
Cool. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Gonzalo.
Thanks a lot, Tilly. It was a pleasure.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. And now I tell you that joke.